Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you guys all for joining today's webinar. I do expect a few more folks to trickle in as we get started, but I wanted to make sure that we start respectfully of your time. So I believe that I have met or emailed or spoken to everyone on the call, but I'm Kristen Bitsy Guy. I manage scholarships and grants and community leadership initiatives for Waccamaw Community Foundation. So today's webinar, we are going to explore our new reporting system, which is RBA, and that stands for Results-Based Accountability. It is based off of the book here on my screen, Trying Hard is Not Good Enough. Don't love the title of the book because it doesn't really have the same tone as what we try to express at the Community Foundation. But there's great material here, and if you ever wanted to dig deeper into RBA, this would be the book to pull from. So I am going to turn off my video so we can focus on the content of the webinar. So as I mentioned, this is our results-based accountability workshop. We will run through a lot of terminology, a lot of sort of grounding definitions that will allow us to move forward speaking the same language. We're going to go over some examples of what the different things are, and we will then conclude today's webinar by taking a look at an actual example of what our reports look like, so that you'll see and you'll know what to expect when you do start reporting on your grant. So starting with our grounding definitions, the first is the result or outcome. For us, this means it's a condition of well-being for the people that we serve and for the communities that we serve. When we talk about results, we're talking about, let's throw out a few examples of like healthy children, children ready for school, children succeeding in school, children staying out of trouble, strong families, elders living with dignity in a setting that they prefer, a healthy, clean environment, a prosperous economy. Those are all examples of the ultimate result of your program or your organization, maybe healthy adults, whatever. So this is sort of the result or the outcome of your program and your organization. Our second grounding definition is the indicator or benchmark. I don't really care what what we call these things, but for this the common language aspect of our report, an indicator or a benchmark is of course the measure that helps quantify the achievement of a result. So potential indicators could be third graders are, those scores are helping to quantify whether children are succeeding in school today, or whether they were ready for school. The crime rate would be one that helps us quantify whether we're living in safe communities. And our last grounding definition for today is a performance measure. The most important performance measures tell us whether the client or the customers are better off. So it's a measure of how well a program, agency, or service is working. But as we know, in all of our programs, activities, parts of our nonprofit organization, we're really looking for how people are better off because of the work that we're doing. So I am going to encourage you all to take yourselves off mute and kind of play along here. It looks like we have a couple of new people who joined, so let me make sure that I can I'll give you permission to talk. So we're going to run through this list here, And I'm going to ask you guys whether you believe it's a result, an indicator, or a performance measure. It's okay if we get it wrong. That's fine. We'll just keep moving. So somebody on our call, do safe community is a result, indicator, or performance measure? Casey.
Got a result.
Yes, it is. If we were in person, I would toss you a Snickers bar or something, but
That would be great for breakfast. Thank you.
so it is a result. Crime rate, result, indicator, performance measure. Anyone chip in?
Indicator?
Yes, indicator, absolutely. The average police department response time, result, indicator, or measure? Performance.
Indicator.
Sorry?
Indicator.
We are going to go with performance measure for this one.
Really?
Tells us how well things are being done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so an educated workforce, result, indicator, or performance measure?
Result?
Yeah. The literacy rate.
Indicator.
Got it. So people having living wages and jobs and incomes, indicator. Oh, sorry, result. I'm looking at my screen for the next one. Result. And the percentage of people living with living wage jobs and incomes, that's an indicator. Percentage of participants in job training who get living wage jobs. What do we think? Result, indicator, performance measure.
Performance measure.
You nailed it. Okay, you guys can put your back on mute. So now that we have kind of our grounding definitions together, we're really going to jump into what is results-based accountability. So first of all, it's a common sense framework that everyone can understand. We believe that this is really going to be a very plain language system. This isn't the logic model, which I love, but it's a little looser and a little easier for, let's say, your donors, for example, to understand. It helps distinguish population versus performance results. So the population versus performance results measures is what really separates RBA from kind of all the other frameworks out there. It's important to understand because it sort of determines who's responsible for what in a community. So is your organization responsible for healthy children, or is it responsible for children reading at grade level? RBA starts with the end and works backwards towards the mean. And what we mean by that, of course, is that if your result here is a healthy child, I'm sorry, I think we've got somebody unmuted. There we go. Okay, I've got everyone muted again. So RBA starts with the ends, like healthy children, and works backwards towards the means, saying, okay, what are our indicators for what a healthy child looks like? And that's how kind of one of the differentiates. Oh, and of course, I'm struggling with my controls again. There we go. So results-based accountability can be used at a community level, agency, strategy, or program level. We really are interested in results-based accountability being a part of our community level understanding of the impact of the nonprofit organizations in our community. For those of you who may receive funding from United Way of Horry County, you'll also be transitioning those reportings to RBA as well. And we're very excited that we're both going to be on RBA because I think it's going to make it easier to understand the impact that's happening in Horry County. And of course, we're hoping to spread it in Georgetown County as well. So RBA uses data and transparency to ensure accountability for both the well-being of people and the performance of programs. And what we're, really kind of saying here is that we need to report out on everything, right? So the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, we're going to report out on it, because reporting our successes and our failures equally help us understand how to improve programs, which improve services, which improve quality of life for the individuals and the communities that we serve. So I just want to go back really quickly to how RBA starts with the ends and works towards the means. The end is the difference that you're trying to make. And it looks kind of slightly different if you're working on a broad community level or if you're focusing on your specific program or organization. So if we were to set RBA outcomes for the entire community, those are going to look a little different, and you're going to be able to see your role within community level work. So we're going to move to this idea of population versus performance. Oops. Sorry about that. So no surprise that the population accountability really focuses on whole populations. So this is not just the population that you're directly serving, but the well-being of whole populations, communities. For our organization, for the Waccamaw Community Foundation, the community that we serve is Horry and Georgetown County. You may serve both Horry and Georgetown counties. You may serve a specific smaller community within those. You may be statewide. It depends on what you're serving. But for the population accountability, it doesn't matter who you're serving. What matters here is the total population. The performance accountability is where we take into effect the well-being of client populations. So we may want to look at South Carolina as a state as the population accountability, or we may want to look at our 2 counties as the population accountability, and then use that performance accountability to really understand the well-being of the population you serve, the client populations versus the whole populations. Does that make sense to everyone? At any point, please feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mute and ask questions. Okay, I see none, so I'm going to keep clipping along. So, performance and results-based accountability. We're not asking you to be accountable for the entire population of the 2-county region that Waccamaw Community Foundation serves. Organizations and programs can only be held accountable for the customers that you serve. And we understand that. What RBA does is help organizations identify the role that you play in community-wide impact. So we're not keeping you accountable for the whole population, but we are interested in how your client population's well-being impacts community-wide population well-being. And the performance measures also look at the quality and efficiency of the services that you're providing. So this is sort of a term that we see in the book, or the original book, and we're calling this turn the curve thinking. So the focus must be on the desired end state, and we shouldn't be focusing, or we shouldn't be confusing the means with an end state. So oftentimes we get distracted by putting a specific number of people through a program and really trying to hit those population served goals. And we kind of forget to pause and take a look at what the end state of the population is. Are you really making an impact? So we're missing sort of all the important indicators and performance measures that help us identify whether our means gets to an end when we're not working with results-based accountability. So I've got a couple of sort of ends here. Access to health and wellness, increase in preventative care, and healthier population could be the ends of a organization that's focused on health. The means that gets to those ends may be creating a nonprofit organization, health insurance company, that then develops a menu of insurance offerings based on age, income, socioeconomic status, any of those sorts of things. And then another mean would be signing up the new clients and sort of keeping existing clients. So I hope you can see here, oftentimes we get focused, let's say, on signing up new clients and keeping existing clients, and we forget to go back and say, did this actually accomplish any of our ends here of creating greater access to health and wellness, of increasing preventative care within our population? So if you're familiar with the logic model, it's not really a revolutionary concept to work with the ends and then kind of go back to the means. But we think this is a much simpler way of looking at that. So the RBA framework really is about effort and effect and quantity and quality. And really, RBA boils down to 3 questions. What did we do? How well did we do it? And is anyone better off? When we look at this sort of upper left quadrant, the quantity and effort comes together to say what you did. How much service did you deliver? The quality and effort grid here is how well did we do it? How well did you deliver your service? Is anyone better off? When we look at quantity, we're saying how much change for the better did we produce? And when we look at quality, we're looking at what quality of change for the better did we produce? So if I asked you to take yourselves off mute again and help me be a little interactive here, the questions that we're looking at here are, how do you determine what goes in which quadrant? So I'm going to give you a few sort of questions and we're going to place those within the quadrant. So we're going to start with the number of people served. Where do you think that fits within our quadrant?
The top left.
Upper left, thank you. Percentage of participants who got jobs from a result of being in your program.
Lower right.
Sorry?
Lower right.
You've got it, absolutely. The staff turnover rate for your organization, where would that go? It's a tricky one.
Upper right.
Upper right, absolutely. How well did we deliver the service? Absolutely includes, is your staff happy with staying in their job? Are you keeping your staff engaged and excited about your work? If you have a high staff turnover rate, then of course you want to look at your program and say, hey, what are we doing wrong here? Because clearly we're losing a lot of people. So we need to take a look at why they're leaving. Okay, number of participants. So this is looking, of course, at client population. Number of participants who got jobs.
Lower left.
Yeah. Percentage of children reading at grade level.
Lower right.
Yep, absolutely. The cost per unit of service. So we're looking internally at how much does it cost you to provide the service?
Upper left.
So this is actually going to be an upper right, because the cost per unit of service gives you an opportunity to say, how well did we deliver the service? Can we deliver it for less? Do we need to deliver it at a high, is our cost per unit of service in line with our budget? Is our cost per unit of service in line with the outcomes we're looking at? So it's a part of how well did we deliver the service. Right, wrong, or indifferent, people do pay attention to overhead for organizations. So this is sort of one of those areas where we can look at how well did we deliver the service, and include the cost per unit of service in that. You may find as you kind of analyze that you do have an opportunity to improve what it costs to serve your clientele. So, oftentimes have to apply to receive your services. Where would you place the number of applications that are processed in a month or in a year?
Upper left.
Upper left. Yep, absolutely. And then let's say you're working with, you are a healthcare organization. I know we've got one on the line. Percentage of patients who fully recover from a specific health issue. Where would that go? Percent.
Lower right.
Lower right, absolutely. Okay, you guys nailed this. This is sometimes a really challenging part of this workshop, but you all get it. Okay, we are done with this this portion of the interactivity again, but we'll get back to do some more interaction here in a moment. Every time I touch the Zoom, it messes up my slide. Okay, so we're going to do sort of a real life example here. Well, a fake real life example. So John's Jobs is a job training program for citizens transitioning from incarceration. Their mission is to provide previously incarcerated citizens with the skills needed to achieve gainful employment. Using the RBA framework's tenant questions as guidelines, what might they use as their metrics? So again, RBA is all about how much did we do, how well did we do it, and is anyone better off? These are some possible ways to measure John's Jobs. How much did we do? Number of clients served, number of activities, number of training hours provided. When we look at how well did we do it, we can say, what is the number or percentage of clients who are obtaining certifications? What's the number or percentage of clients who have completed all activities? Again, you could also include cost of providing clients with training. You could look at staff satisfaction with providing services for your program, or of course, volunteer satisfaction is equally important. I know a lot of organizations maybe have one paid employee and a bunch of staff members, and sometimes not even that. It's sometimes, one paid employee and a bunch of volunteer staff is what I was trying to say earlier. And of course, some organizations are totally volunteer. So whether you're looking at volunteer satisfaction or staff satisfaction, you're looking at how the people who are in your direct client services are feeling about the work you're doing. And of course, the big question is anyone better off? So how many are better off and how are they better off are both equally important here. So placement and jobs is just as important as how long, what percentage of those placed people stay in that job for others for 6 months. And you can kind of see the correlation between the two. There doesn't necessarily always have to be a very clear correlation. Sometimes you may be measuring a number that doesn't necessarily have a percentage correlation, and that's okay. But what we're looking at in general is sort of how those very easily quantified things relate to bigger community effect. So this is kind of the portion of the presentation where if you would like to think about the program. Now, this is a presentation that I have given before prior to application cycle. So this is where I would challenge you, and we won't spend time actually doing this activity today. Really want to, but you'll look at your applications and you'll try to identify the end goals of the application that you've submitted to Waccamaw Community Foundation and received funding for. You'll make a note of the means. So what are the programmatic elements that you're doing that get you to the ends? And then identifying the metrics that you can use to produce an RVA output. So again, it all goes back to what did we do? How well did we do it? Is anyone better off? If you review your application and you're starting to think about how to report out using this methodology, and you're not totally sure, you know, sort of how to tell this story, how to fit all of your things in, please reach out to me and let me know. But I'll also share with you all, you know, sort of the thing that I have to tell myself sometimes, which is that we're not in school anymore and none of this is graded. So if you put something in quantity in the what did we do that should have been in the how well did we do it, or the other way around, y'all, I'm not gonna be like, oh, they messed up that one thing, they'll never get funding from us again. That's not how we do things at the Community Foundation. We want you to think critically and do your best to tell your story according to this rubric. But again, if you place something in a different area than where it technically belongs, that's not really a concern. So please don't stress yourselves out over that. So why on earth are we doing this complicated, making everybody learn this results-based accountability format? Well, first of all, we believe it's going to help you build your capacity as an organization. It's going to help you understand what you're doing, how well you're doing it, and how you can be better. It kind of forces you to take that time to look internally at what you're doing as an organization. It also helps you tell your story as an organization. It helps you understand that where your organization's impact belongs in the community. For us, it's also important because we're able to discover data trends, particularly with the close relationship that we have with other funders in the area. We're able to say, here are the trends that we're discovering in our grant making. What are you seeing in your grant making? And then we are able to kind of better understand where we might best allocate resources. Or we may be able to say, oh gosh, look at this. We've got people who are going through this excellent job training program, and are eager to work, but we don't have enough organizations who are interested in employing formerly incarcerated individuals. So let's, as funders, take a look at how we can open those doors for those individuals. So we may see that the organizations are doing a great service, but then there is a drop off in how well the community embraces the individuals who have been through client services. It also helps for us with standardized reporting. Even though we do have a current sort of reporting format, those of you who have done it before know it's very open-ended. It's very subjective. You can include or not include whatever you want. I do often follow up with questions for organizations, but sometimes it's comparing apples to oranges, and this standardized reporting helps us understand organizational impact for each grantee that we serve. And it also helps us discover our own impact as an organization. I think everyone knows that Waccamaw Community Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We have to raise money in order to continue to grant to nonprofit organizations, in order to provide scholarships, in order to do things like the Waccamaw Nonprofit Summit or our disaster relief and recovery work. So it's very important to us as a community foundation to be able to discover and tell the story of our own impact so that we can continue to do work in our community and services to our nonprofit organizations. So we can also better understand your goals and progress with the programs and services that you offer. And by setting this up at the beginning, expected results are really clearly defined and articulated, and there's no question of what your goal is and what you're trying to accomplish. We think eventually it's going to be easier for more effective reporting for your organization. There may be a learning curve here, but in general, we think this is going to be an easier and more effective way for your organization to report out on grant funding. Data is really regularly collected and reported to determine your success. And I think you'll find that as you're reporting out to other granting organizations, that this framework is really going to help you tell a more comprehensive story and really answer a lot of questions from other funders as well. And of course, I've kind of touched on this several times throughout the presentation, that RBA puts us all on the same sheet of music, and it allows us to really develop some comprehensive approaches, some collaborative approaches around community indicators that we're, very interested in. And of course, we're doing this together. So now what? This reporting does replace regular grant reports for individual programs with one yearly report. So for us, that means if you receive a grant from the Carver Educational Fund or from the Waccamaw Community Trust, or you receive both, I guess I should say, you no longer have to report separately for each of those funds. You're completing one comprehensive report. You're also able to tell, let me see if I can go on here. If you receive less than $2,000 from the Community Foundation, you're probably not on this call, because I did only invite the people who received $2,000 or more from the Community Foundation in a given calendar year. And that is what we go by. If you receive $2,000 or more from WCF in a calendar year, we expect reporting from you. If you do not, you're excused from the reporting cycle. This is really for judging the impact of our grant dollars. Reports will be completed by June of the following calendar year. So if you received funding this year, you have until June 2022 to report out on what you did in 2021. I encourage you not to wait that long. I encourage you to report much sooner. As soon as you are able to report, that's what we're looking at. But again, we are looking at what you've accomplished in a year. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to complete it before the year's up. But if it does, then go for it. But you don't have to wait until June to apply, is I guess or to submit your application. You can do it much sooner in the year if it works for you. The reporting is going to be done in the same portal that you're filing applications. And then to just kind of clear up a few more things about this matrix or rubric or framework, whatever you want to call it. So what we want here and what we believe is important, how much did we do it is oftentimes what we focus on, but that's really the least important thing in terms of RBA reporting, because we're more interested in outcomes. But quality, how well did we do it, is important. But of course, the most important thing is anyone better off? That's the goal for your organization. That's our goal as a funder. So spend more time focusing on making sure you're collecting the data for is anyone better off? These are our tips for reporting using RBA, but these are great tips regardless of whether you're using RBA or not. Obviously, be specific and honest. Oftentimes, nonprofits struggle to report the bad and ugly or the learning moments, but we can't grow as organizations and we can't help you as a funder if we don't know what you're really facing. Always, of course, be clear and concise. This includes trying to eliminate jargon as much as you can. We would love to be able to copy and paste comments in your report to share your story of your impact in your community. But if it's a lot of jargon and a lot of run-on sentences, then of course it gets very difficult for us to share that story and for you to share your story. Just as we expect you to be honest in roadblocks, we want you to celebrate your own success, toot your own horn. Don't be afraid to be braggadocious. This is the time for sure. And of course, we want you to share the examples of everything. So toot your own horn, share your accomplishments, but what were your learning opportunities in the course of running the program? And I'll share with you all that I get a little concerned when I see no learning opportunities, no roadblocks, nothing negative in a grant report, because I've been in your shoes as an executive director or as a grant manager. And I can tell you, I've never been a part of a program that didn't have any problems at all. So be honest and share all of the learning opportunities that you and if you're not clear on any of this, ask questions. I am here as a resource. I hope you all know that you can call me and email me, and I will do my best to set aside however much time you need to feel comfortable and feel good about your report, about your applications, whatever your endeavor is. Of course, completing your reports by that June deadline is really important. If you fail to submit that grant from the previous year by June of the following year, you will not be eligible to compete for funds in the future until that report has been received. And I think that's a pretty fair condition of reporting. We had previously said that a report needed to be done within 6 months and had to be done before the next grant cycle. And this gives you a little bit of wiggle room for that. It gives you a little more time to report, which we know will give you more time to be more comprehensive in your reporting. But 6 months following the end of a calendar year should be plenty of time for you to be able to report out on what you've accomplished during a a program cycle. So what are your questions before we move on to the sample grant report? Feel free to take yourself off mute if you don't want to do that. If you would prefer to drop it in the chat, that's fine as well. But do we have any questions so far? Is the fact that you don't have questions, is it because it's crystal clear, or is it because you're super confused?
I think that it's clear.
It's clear to me.
Okay, great. I know sometimes it gets so overwhelming that you don't even want to ask, but I know that most of you all are probably quite comfortable with all of this. Okay. I am gonna pull up the sample report here that we're gonna take a look at. So this is our 2020 report. So this is our 2020 end of year report. So because we had introduced this a little later, we extended the deadline to October 2021 for 2020 reports rather than requiring that June deadline. But this is what it will look like. It is, as mentioned, in the same portal as your application. Nothing crazy or revolutionary here. Some of this information is things you would have collected for the application itself. But certainly when you're talking about a year's time, some of this stuff may have changed throughout the calendar year. And so we're giving you the opportunity to report out again. I don't necessarily expect that these answers will be the same from your application to your report. So nothing unusual here. So we kind of get started with the real reporting here on knowing, the counties that you served, whether that was both the number of people that were served, individuals who were served. We're asking demographic information here. Again, maybe something that you included in your grant application, but giving you the opportunity here to report out again. If none of these questions work for you, like if you don't have the answer for any of them, you can just put 0 for all of them and then send me an email and say, this just wasn't applicable. I'll scroll through all this demographic stuff because I don't think that needs any explanation. And we will start in with your services. So what types of services, events, and activities did you provide to your service population in the past year? And that is looking at how much did we do. It's that upper left quadrant of how much did we do, and you're providing your numbers for services, events, and activities, and explaining a bit about what those services, events, and activities were. The success question here, this is the upper right quadrant. How well did we do it? Would you consider the work you did in the past year to be successful? Why or why not? So again, this is that upper right quadrant. How well did we do it? And we really would expect to probably see, numbers and percentages here. Far fewer like we provided X number of trainings, that's going to go into services. The success is going to be, and 27% of people said that they found a job, or whatever the case may be. This is, again, the quality improvement is also an upper right quadrant question. So how can you continue to improve strategies into your work that will make you more successful? When we look at improvement in service population, this is the lower left quadrant. improvement is going to be more number driven than percentage driven. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. Improvement in service population is going to be the lower right quadrant where we're looking at percentages. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. So just to be clear, improvement in service population will tell us most importantly, the percentage, is anyone better off? How many people are exhibiting these improvements? We did also ask how COVID-19 has affected your organization's work. We know that it's going to continue to impact work for 2021. Obviously, we're still fully in the pandemic. So this is sort of your opportunity to explain how the pandemic has affected your work and lessons you've learned and adjustments you've had to make. And if you feel your program kind of fell short of what you wanted it to be, but it fell short because of COVID-19, you can explain that here. This probably will not be an issue for this upcoming year, but if for some reason there are dollar amounts that you weren't able to spend because a program you were planning wasn't able to happen because of COVID-19, this would be where you can answer that or explain that. And oftentimes, if there is a legitimate reason, such as a pandemic, why you weren't able to do your program as planned, if you're communicating with that with me throughout the year and you report it out on this post-grant report, oftentimes we're able to seek permission from our board of directors to allow you to keep the funding and apply it to general operations. So bear that in mind. And of course, we want to give you the chance to share those warm fuzzies too. So much of the RBA is focused on measurement, and we want to give you the chance to do the sort of qualitative stories that lots of people need to see the true impact of your organization, those warm fuzzy stories about the people that you've served and how their lives are better. And then we give you the opportunity to just, what would you like us to know that we haven't asked, is essentially what our final question is here. So looking at the presentation, looking at the sample of our report, are there any questions for me? Okay, so everyone feels good about RBA. I hope. I guess silence doesn't necessarily mean you feel good about it, but that's what we're going to go with. Okay. So thank you all for joining, whether you're joining live right now or you are watching it later. I hope that you know that I am here to support you, whether it's with your grant report, with your application, with program services and deliveries. Anytime that you are running into an issue or anytime you want to share a success, please feel free to reach out to me. I won't say there's no such thing, but it would be incredibly difficult to over communicate with the Community Foundation. So don't hesitate to reach out at any time with questions, with challenges, whatever the case may be. We are here to support your work, and that doesn't necessarily mean just financially. We want you to consider the Community Foundation to be a partner who can help you solve problems, who can help you meet your goals. So with that, if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to learn more about RBA and to deepen your relationship with Waccamaw Community Foundation. Thank you all.